The Dodgers are close to their first World Series title since 1988. Clayton Kershaw gets a big win. The Dodgers one game away from exorcising their postseason demons. So we'll talk a little bit about that later in the program. But obviously, this is a football-centric show. We talk the NFL and we talk college football a lot on Mondays. And so I want to start with that fabulous Sunday night football game and the big win that Kyler Murray and company managed to get against the Seahawks. The big lesson here is Seahawks finally lose a close game, and Russell Wilson proves that he is mortal because he made a bunch of mistakes in this game that gave Arizona a chance to win. Now, to be fair, Seattle still scored 34 points, but Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions, including a late one that allowed Gonzalez to get redemption after he missed what should have been the game-winning field goal in overtime. He comes back for the Cardinals, makes another one, and this is just more evidence, as if we needed it, of how good the NFC West is. You can make an argument based on what the 49ers did to the Patriots, and we'll get to that in a little bit, based on what the Rams have done so far this year, and certainly based on the Seahawks and the Cardinals, that there is no division that is even remotely close to as good as the NFC West is right now. Kyler Murray, what a performance. 360 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. He also ran for another touchdown. He looked absolutely spectacular as the Cardinals win to get to 5-2, and Seattle loses to get to 5-1. So we only have one unbeaten team now left in the entirety of the NFL, and that team is the Steelers, because the Steelers outlasted the Titans in what was an absolutely heavyweight fight, it felt like, game on Sunday. And what stood out about, so congratulations to the Arizona Cardinals, what stood out to us about that battle between two 5-0 teams, the Steelers find a way to win. First of all, because Stephen Gostkowski missed a 45-yard field goal that would have put this game into overtime. And what was interesting about this game in general, I would say, maybe more so than was expected, was how it was clearly a tale of two halves. The first half, the Steelers pretty much came out and absolutely dominated the Titans, took the opening drive down for a touchdown, were up 24-7, kicked a field goal early in the second half, and then the Titans kind of caught fire from there. The only time the Titans had the ball with a chance to take the lead in the entire game was the final drive, and it came down to that Gostkowski kick after. And again, I think if you went back and watched the film and you asked Ryan Tannehill, hey, what did you do wrong? The Titans were in incredibly good shape after he hit A.J. Brown to convert a 3rd and 12. Titans had a first down at the Steeler 25 with 1 minute to play. And on that play, as he dropped back to pass, 1st and 10 from the Steeler 25, Ryan Tannehill got hit with an intentional grounding penalty. Credit to the Steelers for putting him under a little bit of pressure. But I think Tannehill could have easily taken a couple of steps, gotten outside of the tackle box, and just heaved the ball wherever he wanted to go. He wasn't far from being outside the tackle box, and Tannehill's pretty mobile. He didn't do that. He lost 10 yards, also required a 10-second runoff, loss of downs. That put the Titans kind of behind the 8 ball. They didn't really have an opportunity at that point to try and go for the win, because once you were at the 25 with a minute to play and a first down, you had a real opportunity there if you hit that play or you hit the next play to put yourself in a position to not just make a field goal, but to go and win the game with a chance to throw a couple of passes into the end zone with opportunities to win the game there. But I left watching the game between the Steelers and the Titans convinced that both of those teams are really good and they may match up again in the future. The Steelers were unbelievable on 3rd down, And that's really where they won the football game, was their conversion rate on third down, and particularly third down and long, was flat out scintillating. And so that is what stood out the most to me, was the Titans couldn't get off the field. And as a result, the Steelers finished 13 of 18 on third down. I mean, that is a crazy statistic. That's also an unbelievable amount of third downs overall. To go 13 out of 18 is just an insane number of attempts overall, and to hit 13 of them is pretty wild. But it felt like a game where most things were even, but congratulations to the Steelers for being the last perfect team standing. They're in a tough division, obviously, the AFC North, and we will see how that shakes out going forward. But to me, we also have to circle back around to the loss that the Seahawks had and point out how unbelievable, and now that they lost, it doesn't seem like as unbelievable of a play, but DK Metcalf chasing down Budda Baker on what should have been a pick six. Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions. The effort that was expended on that play was off the charts. And I've talked on this show about how DK Metcalf reminds me of Randy Moss. There's no way Randy Moss tries to make that play. There's no way he runs as far as we saw DK Metcalf. There's no way he hits 22.64 miles an hour. DK Metcalf, they said, ran over 100 yards to make that play. And we should point out that for a moment, I'm sure Cardinals fans, their hearts were in their throats. For a moment, it looked like DK Metcalf had a walk-off to win the game for the Steelers in overtime. 50-yard explosive play on what was a pretty basic, just wide receiver screen. Russell Wilson stood up, threw it out wide, and DK Metcalf made it happen from there, but they called a holding penalty. And I do think it was the right call on the hold. I do think it was a hold, but it was still an absolutely incredible play that DK Metcalf made. And I think you can make an argument that Metcalf is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And oh, by the way, Lockett was making plays like crazy for the Seahawks. But the Seahawks, again, finally lose a close game. They were 14-2 in one-possession games. Coming into this game, they lose a one-possession game. The Arizona Cardinals get a big win. And, as Dub knows, the Outkick six-pack of picks. In the NFL, we have been on fire. Our college football picks have not been doing that well. But in the NFL, we have been on fire. We went 5-2. I gave you 7 picks this past weekend. And we are now 25-12 on the year in our NFL picks. We went 5-2 against the number there.